My name is Olivia, and I'm 30 years old. I work in finance, managing numbers and clients all day. My husband, David, is 33. He works in construction. Strong hands, quiet voice, always coming home with dust on his shirt and a tired smile on his face. We've been married for 5 years and live in a small apartment on the edge of the city. It's not fancy, but it's warm, filled with laughter and the smell of David's morning coffee. David earns less than I do, but he never lets pride get in the way of kindness. He cooks dinner when I'm late, fixes things around the house, and always listens, even when I complain about work. He doesn't talk much, but when he does, his words carry peace. To everyone around us, we were a happy couple. And for a long time, I believed it too. I thought love alone could make a marriage perfect. But I was wrong. Our life together was simple but warm. Every morning, David woke up earlier than me to make coffee and toast. The smell of breakfast always filled the apartment, and he would say with a smile, "Good morning, sunshine," as if every day was a new beginning. We ate together before heading to work, me in a clean suit, him in his worn-out work clothes, but somehow it never bothered him. In the evenings, we often watched TV on our old couch or went for a walk around the neighborhood. David loved small things, flowers, sunsets, quiet moments. Every Friday, he brought home a bunch of daisies, saying, "They reminded me of you." He cooked dinner when I came home late, made sure my favorite tea was ready, and always listened when I complained. He said, "Money can buy comfort, but love builds a home." For a while, I believed that too. But as time went by, something inside me started to change. I began comparing our life to others. My co-workers bought new houses, new cars, expensive handbags. They talked about vacations in Paris, while I still counted bills at the end of the month. David never seemed to care about those things. He was proud of his work, even if it didn't pay much. But I couldn't help feeling frustrated. I wanted more security, more luxury, more success. And instead of being grateful, I started to see David as the reason I didn't have them. I loved him, but my love was becoming conditional, poisoned by comparison. I smiled less, sighed more, and every time he tried to make me happy, I found something new to complain about. I didn't realize that my anger was slowly destroying the man who loved me most. One Friday evening, the clock struck 9, and David still wasn't home. The dinner I had cooked was getting cold, and the silence of the apartment made my frustration grow louder. When the door finally opened, I didn't even let him speak. "You can't even earn enough for a decent life," I shouted. My voice echoed through the room, sharper than I intended. David stood by the door, his face pale from exhaustion. "I'm trying my best," he said quietly. He didn't fight back, didn't raise his voice. He just took off his shoes, washed his hands, and sat down silently. His calmness somehow made me even angrier. The next day, I met one of my colleagues, Sarah, who had just bought a new house and a shiny car. She talked endlessly about vacations, shopping, and her husband's promotion. I smiled politely, but inside I was burning with envy. When I got home, I looked around our small apartment, the faded curtains, the second-hand furniture, the old TV, and something inside me snapped. That night, David found me sitting in the living room, staring blankly. "What's wrong?" he asked softly. I didn't answer. I just said, "I'm tired of living like this." He nodded, but said nothing more. The next week, he started coming home even later. When I asked why, he smiled and said, "I found another job. Just part-time at a restaurant. Soon, we'll have everything you want." I didn't realize what that really meant. Days turned into weeks. David left before sunrise and came home long after midnight. His hands were rougher, his face thinner, but he never complained. He just smiled, saying, "Don't worry, it's worth it." But the spark in his eyes was fading. I began to eat dinner alone most nights. The chair across from me stayed empty. The apartment, once filled with laughter, now echoed with silence. I told myself this was progress, that soon we'd have the money, the comfort, the life I dreamed of. But one evening, as I sat alone, the TV humming quietly in the background, I stared at the empty chair and felt an ache deep in my chest. The loneliness was heavier than any hunger for success. I wanted more but I was losing what really mattered. It was almost midnight when David came home that night. I was sitting on the couch, arms crossed, anger boiling inside me. The moment the door opened, I stood up and shouted, "Why are you never here anymore? Do you even care about this marriage?" David looked at me with tired eyes. His shirt was wrinkled, his hands trembling slightly as he set down his work bag. "I'm doing this for us, Olivia," he said softly. "For you." I folded my arms tighter. "No," I said coldly. "You're doing it for your pride, not for me. You just can't stand that I earn more than you." He opened his mouth to respond, but stopped. He looked pale, his breathing unsteady. I didn't notice at first. I was too caught up in my own anger. "Say something." I shouted again. But he didn't. His eyes rolled back, and before I could move, he collapsed to the floor. For a few seconds, I couldn't breathe. "David!" I screamed, running to him, shaking his shoulders. His skin was cold, his pulse weak. Panic flooded me as I called for an ambulance, my voice breaking. At the hospital, time moved strangely, too slow, yet too fast. The doctor came out, his face serious. "He's suffering from severe exhaustion," he said. "He's been overworking for too long. He needs rest, real rest, or it could get worse." The words hit me harder than I could have imagined. I sat in the waiting room, my hands shaking, tears streaming down my face. When I was finally allowed into his room, I saw him lying there, pale and thin, hooked to tubes and monitors. The man who had once seemed unbreakable now looked fragile, almost transparent. I sat beside him and took his hand in mine. His skin was rough, calloused, familiar. For the first time in years, I truly looked at him, not at his clothes or his paycheck, but at the person he was. A good man. A kind man. A man who had been trying to make me happy, even when I made it impossible. Tears fell onto his hand as I whispered, "What have I done?" In that moment, I understood. Love isn't measured by what someone can give you, but by what they sacrifice for you. He gave me everything, and I gave him pain. The night I returned home from the hospital, the apartment felt colder than ever. The lights were on, but the place was silent. Everything I had once dreamed of owning was there: the designer sofa, the expensive curtains, the glass dining table, but they all looked meaningless. I sat down and listened to the sound of my own breathing. For the first time, I felt truly lonely. I walked through each room slowly, touching the things I had bought with pride. They no longer made me feel successful, they made me feel empty. My eyes landed on a small photo on the shelf, David and I, smiling on our wedding day. His arm was around me, his eyes full of peace. I could almost hear his voice again, saying, "Money can buy comfort, but love builds a home." Tears filled my eyes as I whispered, "What kind of wife have I been?" The memories came flooding back. Every argument, every cruel word I threw at him, every time he smiled instead of fighting back. My anger had blinded me. I realized that my anger didn't come from him, it came from fear. Fear of not being enough, fear of being judged, fear of losing control. And David had carried that fear for both of us, quietly, without complaint. As the night went on, I sat by the window, watching the city lights flicker. For the first time in years, I felt a strange peaceful silence inside me. It wasn't happiness, but it was clarity. I finally understood that respect and love were worth more than any dream I had chased. I didn't need a richer husband. I needed to be a better wife. 2 weeks later, David came home from the hospital. He moved slowly, still weak, but the moment he walked through the door, I felt something shift inside me. I helped him sit on the couch and brought him tea, my hands trembling as I placed the cup in front of him. For a long time, neither of us spoke. The silence between us wasn't angry anymore. It was fragile, like a wound still healing. "I'm sorry, David," I finally said. My voice cracked. "For everything I said. For everything I made you feel. You didn't deserve any of it." He looked at me quietly, his eyes tired but gentle. "Olivia," he said softly, "I just wanted you to be happy." "I know," I whispered, tears falling. And I never realized I already was. For the next few days, I took care of him, cooking meals, reminding him to rest, helping him with simple things. Each small act felt like a way to rebuild what I had broken. David never complained. Sometimes, when I caught him watching me with a faint smile, I felt both pain and gratitude. One evening, as we shared dinner together for the first time in weeks, he said, "Maybe we can start again." His voice was calm, hopeful. "Yes," I replied. "Let's start again." We began to rebuild our life slowly, piece by piece. We went for short walks in the park, holding hands like we used to. We laughed again, small, shy laughs at first, but real ones. There were still moments of silence, moments when guilt would rise in my chest, but they didn't last long. I began to understand what love truly meant. It wasn't about perfection or possessions. It was about patience, gratitude, and respect. I no longer compared our life to others. I stopped counting what we didn't have and started noticing what we did: trust, kindness, and a second chance. One night, as David fell asleep beside me, I thought about everything we had been through. The pain, the distance, the forgiveness. I realized that love doesn't need to be flawless, it just needs to be sincere. Forgiveness doesn't erase the past, I whispered to myself, but it opens the door to a better future. We were not perfect, but we were whole again. One quiet Sunday afternoon, David and I went for a walk through the park near our apartment. The sun was warm, the air soft with the smell of blooming flowers. We held hands as we walked slowly, laughing about little things. The way he still couldn't cook rice properly, the time I burned the pancakes. For the first time in a long while, everything felt light. As we sat down on a bench, I looked at him and smiled. "You know," I began softly, "I used to be angry all the time. I thought money measured love, that success was the same as happiness." I paused, watching the sunlight on his tired but peaceful face. "But love is not about numbers," I continued. "It's about effort, patience, and kindness." David squeezed my hand gently, saying nothing, but I could feel his understanding in that quiet gesture. In that moment, I realized how far we had come, from pain to peace, from pride to forgiveness. I once believed love was about what someone could give me. Now I know it's about what we build together, even when it's hard. As I watched a family nearby playing with their child, I thought to myself, sometimes, we hurt the people who love us the most. But if we learn to see their hearts, we might realize we already have everything we need. The breeze brushed my hair as David leaned closer, whispering, "I'm glad we didn't give up." I smiled and whispered back, "Me too." Do you think love can survive anger and pride? Tell us in the comments. If you liked this story, please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more emotional English stories.